I'm Connor Old, and welcome to the, fifth episode of Masters of Control Chaos. I have to think about it there for a second. Today we're doing maybe the best director of all time, one of my favorites for sure, an incredibly enjoyable director, one that's definitely recognizable, right behind Spielberg, our last episode, and that is Martin Scorsese. Now, Martin Scorsese, like I said, one of my favorite directors, one of the most influential directors for sure. He's sort of right behind Spielberg in terms of, especially in the film community, I think a lot of people sort of disregard Spielberg in terms of, he just makes blockbuster mainstream movies, but Scorsese sort of, it's up there for Oscars a lot of times, is always nominated. A lot of times he's considered like sort of that New York outsider versus the LA insiders, but he still makes fantastic movies. He's done some of the best movies of all time, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people's favorite movies, and he's in best consideration of like best New York movie all the time, or best gangster movie in case of Goodfellas, which is the best one, I think. So if you're new to the series, let me just explain this first. So every week we break down a different director. We've done Spielberg, we've done Wes Anderson, Coen Brothers, Paul Thomas Anderson. Finally, we're getting to Scorsese. Like I said, one of the best. And essentially, what I do is I talk a little bit about why I think he's good, and then I also talk about what my favorite movie is of his, and then what I think the best movie of his is, and why you should watch both. Because every time I recommend a movie, I think someone should watch it. Even though I'm doing sort of the general directors right now, we will go into more niche ones as we go on. But I want to get the basics out of the way and talk about why these guys specifically are such great directors. Now, so really what I found about Scorsese, I do have some notes if you're coming from old Oscar content, just because I want to keep that format, but I still want to look and reference back and forth. So what I've realized a lot is that Scorsese, I think, is just an impeccable storyteller. He tells these amazing stories, very engaging, that are well done and artsy in some places, but also sort of very genuine and very relatable in a lot of cases. A lot of his stories revolve around tragedies, so things like Goodfellas, things like Wolf of Wall Street, Casino, etc., of a character that definitely goes through an arc and a progression. That typical sort of, they do something and then at the end they're completely two different people. It's never really a slice of life movie as it is, something's happening. It covers someone's lives, but like very much an epic in a sense in terms of they span decades and there's a lot of things happening within those. And like I said, I think the fascination between why we really connect to these stories, not only some of the stories he tells in terms of the religious ones, but also the ones, like I said, the tragedies, because we want to see someone the rise and then the fall. It's interesting to see. I think that's also why we like celebrities, for an example, because we really like to see them rise and then maybe fall and sort of see them as sort of these glorious figures. That's why he does stuff like gangsters and rich people. I mean, the beginning of Goodfellas, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Everyone wants to be sort of that rich person or that famous person, and he sort of chronicles those views from a pedestrian. Even though he's an amazing director, has lots of money, and hangs out with the celebrities, he still has sort of that outsider perspective because he's not necessarily a celebrity in a sense. He is in the film community. Oh, and I almost forgot. I'm pointing this out because I'm not wearing a suit. I'm sort of wearing the Italian sort of Martin Scorsese style outfit here with the Puma jacket, white beard. Anyway, I just want to point that out in case you guys thought that was a little weird. Just trying to keep theme with the episode. Going back to that, I think he really does a great job at being an outsider's perspective, looking in towards, like a lot of people. I know a lot of the times, especially in Scorsese's later work, even like Shutter Island and movies before that, he would show them in New York and they'd be like, "Hey, is Joe Pesci in here?" Because, they think that when they think Scorsese. And that's a lot of things he has, is a lot of collaborators. He's been with De Niro and Scorsese for a while. He's actually going to go back with De Niro again for The Irishman, another gangster pick that hopefully Pesci is in, Pacino's in, and De Niro's in. That should be really, really awesome. I can't wait for that. Bought to Netflix for like $50 million. But also, he's been working recently with DiCaprio, so Wolf of Wall Street, Shutter Island, Aviator, one of my favorites, Aviator, really good movie. And so he sort of works with these actors, but I don't think he's necessarily a collaborator. Like, I think of the Coen Brothers, but I can't think of the Coen Brothers without thinking of Roger Deakins' cinematography. Or I can't think of Ellsworth, the cinematographer for Paul Thomas Anderson's movies. They're almost inseparable. But Martin Scorsese, he has these actors collaborators, but he doesn't actually have everyone else, the technical collaborators. So he doesn't always have the same cinematographer. He's used guys like Robert Rodriguez and Robert Richardson. Not Robert Rodriguez. Rodrigo Pietro and Robert Rodriguez. Robert Richardson and Rodrigo Pietro, sorry. But like, my point is, in this doesn't necessarily use the same composure every single time, and especially in the technical and below, he really decides to work for what works with the story. But in terms of actors, we see a lot of the same actors because I think you really gets to know the characters, and then they're sort of like, it makes it easier. Like, I know De Niro and Scorsese would always say they're probably the best actor collaborator I think of all time, and they'd always say like they'd always be a step ahead. Like Scorsese would be like, "Hey Bob," because that's what they call De Niro, Bob, you know, and then he goes, yeah, I know, because they have sort of like they skip a step. They don't need to explain. He just knows what it is. He knows what to talk about, which shows a great collaboration. I think really Scorsese, he's able to tell these great stories because he's able to gather everyone for a common vision, and they all know what to strive towards. And really every single part of Scorsese's movies are flawless or barely flawed, and they really all work together, like puzzle pieces that all just come together. And I think that's a lot hard for people to realize, because it's not just the director. You know, directors are masters of controlled chaos, but there's so many divisions to go on: the production design, costumes, the actors, the writer, the cinematographer, getting everything right, the second AD, the first AD, and that's just half of it. And really to sort of command these people in these big budget-esque movies. He doesn't do huge budgets, but he does some pretty big budgets. And because he's able to make his money back, and he's sort of really well respected. I mean, he's Scorsese. We also have him here on the Tonight Show, which we found. This is a good video in case you want to look it up online. But also, another thing about Scorsese's movies is I think they have a lot to them. Of course, there's the storytelling, but then if you really want to study them, there's a lot to it with incredible screenwriters like Paul Schrader that he's worked with before, or Jay Cox with Gangs of New York and Silence. And his movies are almost one of my favorite movies. I love almost all of his movies, even his underrated movies. They're underrated, they're still fantastic. So, now let's, oh yeah, another thing he likes to do is his music. Is in terms of, well, let's go back to the collaborator part. Because he uses so many different people, I think he's considered an auteur in that sense, because he sort of has that vision and can do everything without relying on too many people. He's very much his own person. And in terms of the music, he uses music a lot, popular music. I'm going to juxtapose two things with him and Tarantino, which I think they both do well, but well in different ways. So you have the music in Tarantino's movies, which are very popular songs, Rolling Stones songs that you've heard of, but they use it to sort of display a time period and an essence, and sort of make it sort of upbeat in that eccentric, really kinetic style of filmmaking that I think he's known for. Really fast-paced, really, I don't want to say in your face, but you're really on this journey, and you're sort of like a roller coaster, and you're really loving it, and it's not popcorn like big action, but you're really just invested in these characters and really having a fun time, and you want to see what happens next. You're on the edge of your seat, not in a thrilling or like a scared, maybe sometimes in the Shutter Island, but really because you just want to jump into the movie. You're so excited about it. At least I do, and I know a lot of people feel that way too. And another thing is, so you have the music, and Tarantino, what he does with the music is he makes sort of unknown songs and makes them popular through his movies to show a period, but mostly because they're unknown songs necessarily. So he sort of uses that to associate with this film and sort of has that same sort of vibe without using almost the money to buy those songs. And then the next thing I want to contrast it to is violence. Scorsese, I think, uses the violence well. Tarantino, I don't really like how he uses it because a lot of it is shock value, I think. I don't think it has a lot necessarily to do with the story. But Scorsese, I feel everything in terms of the violence, and that's why he's such a great director, but the violence, everything has to connect in. If you're shooting a guy in the head, like in Goodfellas, it has to be a reason, because it's going to come back later on, or it's going to influence another one of those characters and sort of have a ripple effect. So it's not violence for violence sake necessarily, or for shock value. It really is to show that, hey, this is, purposeful. Everything's purposeful, I think, in a lot of his movies. You can watch essays upon Goodfellas or Taxi Driver or Raging Bull. These are some of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. Because I'm just like, you only uses like 5 shots of overhead shots in Taxi Driver. Well, what does that mean necessarily? Why does he choose these 5 shots to be overhead and the rest not? And a lot of people say, oh no, you're diving too deep into it. But really, if you start looking at not the theories, but sort of the reasoning behind them, you sort of get that. And he explains it himself a lot of the times. So it's really impeccable. And he has these great scripts, but to be able to get it visually and sort of describe what the screenwriter's done, I think he does a fantastic job at doing that. So now let's move over into, the last thing I want to say is improv. He promotes improv a lot, and that's what gives it a lot of authenticity. I know a lot of people, when they see Goodfellas, it's like, especially if you're Italian, or like even a family dynamic, you're like, oh, I know that guy, that's my uncle, I understand who that is. Oh, hey, that's my mom's like that too. So that strict parent, a lot of people, not just Italians, but other ethnicities and people, can really feel that family dynamic. And then also things like Wolf of Wall Street, sort of like these big top executive guys, like that's how they sort of talk, and because they really trusted the actors to get to know the characters, and then improv from there. A lot of things that he's really good to do is, I realized that when you're shooting a movie and the scene ends, you want to wait till like 1, 2, 3, and then say cut, just in case something goes on. And that's what Scorsese does a lot. Is just he keeps the cameras rolling, just keep it rolling. Okay, let's try this, and they just sort of improv and create that authenticity because it's real. It's coming off the top of their minds. It's what they think their character would say, instead of having it sort of stuck into a storyboard or a screenplay that's very definite. He really uses that on-screen, sort of on-set energy and puts into his movies, and you really feel that energy in that sense of authenticity. So now let's move on to Goodfellas. This is what I think is his best movie. A lot of people could say Raging Bull, or people could even say, like, maybe Taxi Driver, or maybe something like, I guess you would even say Wolf of Wall Street most recently. I know I'm forgetting something, but like I said, Scorsese has so many fantastic movies, but I do want to look at Goodfellas because I think it's sort of what I consider Scorsese as, in terms of his casinos and his Wolf of Wall Streets, and in terms of this, one collaborator he does have is his editor, Thelma Shoemaker. I forgot about that. The legendary editor. I was trying to get her in for editing for the Oscars, but she didn't get it, unfortunately. Anyways, Scorsese, why Goodfellas is the best is because it has that sense of energy like you see in Casino and Wolf of Wall Street, and even something like King of Comedy. It has incredible performances from Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, and Joe Pesci, just across the board. Ray Liotta really hasn't done anything since, but obviously this is his high point. You could even consider De Niro was one of his high points. I'd probably consider Taxi Driver or Raging Bull his high point there. Joe Pesci's high point, definitely. And all these three cast of characters, and then everyone they interact with, every supporting character in the movie is fantastic and fully realized, and you feel like they have their own backstory and they're real people, creating those real impeccable storytelling abilities and those impeccable characters that Scorsese is able to convey. And then also, so you have the three main characters, and they're all each differently from each other. They interact with the supporting characters differently. They take situations differently. And to me, this is actually the best gangster movie of all time. I think it's better than Godfather 1 and 2. Even though I could say maybe Godfather 2 is a better movie, Goodfellas is the better gangster movie. Just because it's similar to how Apocalypse Now, I don't think is another Francis Ford Coppola movie who made Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. Similar how Apocalypse Now isn't the best Vietnam War movie. It could be the best war movie, but I think it has themes that transcend that. So when I think of gangster, I think of Goodfellas, because Godfather is so operatic and so, it's fiction too. Operatic, and it's fiction, and it's very much like, oh, this is a movie. But Goodfellas is almost like you're watching it on a conversation. It's very more authentic, and that makes sense because it's actually based on a true story, which is so much harder to do than The Godfather, which is just a made up a fictional story. Similar to Apocalypse Now, how I'll probably say Platoon is the best Vietnam War movie, but Apocalypse Now sort of captures the feeling of what it was like to be in Vietnam, but to be in any war, and the symptoms of war, and the negatives of that time period. And of course the Vietnam War funnels into that, but it was based off a Hearts of Darkness book, which was not a war book, but he translated that into the Vietnam War. Just interesting things where I think The Godfather has themes. I think it is probably a better movie than Goodfellas, slightly. I mean, they're two of the best movies of all time, if you ask me. But Godfather and Godfather 2 have just sort of like more sophisticated themes, but that doesn't mean they're the best gangster movies in that sense. And really what I love about Goodfellas is that kinetic, sort of lively, fast-paced, energetic beginning. The last 20 minutes is sort of the downfall, but that rise is so much fun. I know a lot of people that saw Wolf of Wall Street, a lot of people my age, really connected to it because they're like, wow, you can get all these girls and all this money and all these cars, and it's like, wow, this is the dream, this is what you want to be. But then you see the downfall. And I think they show that with Goodfellas, sort of Ray Liotta, him as a younger guy working his way up through the gangster, sort of mafia-esque system. And that's another thing that I want to point out is the best parts about Goodfellas is sort of like how things happen. There's that whole narration. Again, another narration part used well again. We've talked about that before with some of the other movies. I say narration never really works, but in Royal Tenenbaums it works, and Apocalypse Now it works, and in Goodfellas it works, especially now because there's two narrators. You have Ray Liotta's character, and then you also have his wife, which comes in later on, which is a bit of a surprise. It's like, oh wow, now there's two narrators, and really Scorsese goes through the story and just like a ballet, just knows what he's doing and doesn't make any mistakes, and it's just like, wow, how did he land that, or and really just pull that off. It's quite fantastic. But like I said, starting from Ray Liotta's character as a kid to sort of him as in the mafia, and having all the like I said, the women and the cars and then the money. They don't really mess with drugs until later on, but and sort of like that professional hitman thing where they're so well respected, and you can feel that it's that power. It's like, oh, I want that money, I want that life, because that's what he said. He always wanted to be a gangster, but he didn't really realize the consequences of it, which we see in the last 20 minutes. And I know that actually hurts for a lot of people. I know a lot of people that don't like the last 20 minutes because they're like, oh, I don't want to watch, I don't want to see the downfall, I just want to see the good stuff. Because the last 20 minutes, I think, are really where the heart of the core is, where, let me use an example of mine. This is one of my best movie memories of all time. It was in Goodfellas. I was so engrossed into the movie, I was so much enjoying the fun, having it, that when they start killing people and you sort of get desensitized to it, it's like the first one's like, oh my god, but then you get desensitized, you're sort of into that world. And you forget about that. And that when he starts coming by the FBI, I had to like take a double look, and I was like, oh my god, I had to wait for a second, like, what, the FBI is coming? The police are coming? I was like, oh my god, what they were doing is illegal the entire time. I know it sounds stupid, but I was so engrossed into their lifestyle and sort of understood their perspective. Another thing that they're so good at, a movie that I hopefully like to make one day, whereas you take a character and you really get into his perspective and understand his idea, and then when you sort of pan back and see that, hey, this is illegal, you can't be doing this stuff, you're killing people, you're sort of like, oh my god, yeah, what have I been doing? So for me, in this 2-hour experience, Scorsese is able to transport me into this, make me, and then keep me going, to make me forget that this is all illegal, and just shows the power of the last 20 minutes to show, oh, you're having a good time, and then boom, sort of like a nice jab to the gut, and you're like winded, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe he sort of just like lulled me in and then knocked me when it hit that 20 minutes. That's just impeccable storytelling. One of my favorite movie memories of all time. Believe me, guys, I'm not making that stuff up. This is really genuine in terms of, I just forgot. I was like, oh yeah, this is illegal, right? And just because he does such a great job lulling me into that perspective and loving that life and wanting that life, and now I'm sort of experiencing that life, and then, oh no, you're going to face consequences. This is illegal. And then, going back to the characters, Ray Liotta is sort of like a hot-headed sometimes, but very cool. And on the other end of the spectrum, Robert De Niro, older character, knows how to do stuff, very much cool and relaxed and knows his stuff. And then sort of the other side, Joe Pesci, very much more money-hungry, a lot less smart than Robert De Niro's character, and very much bullheaded, sort of that Joe Pesci that we know today, where he's like, come on, and he's really just angry, like fuse that he light up at any time. He's a loose cannon, and Joe Pesci does an incredible job at that. He's very much put into the stereotype, but he does a great job at it, and this is where he really developed that character of him being a loose cannon and him being like, this sort of like gangster guy who just really wants all this power. It really does a great job of that. And then also another thing is back to the sort of perspective and lulling you into it. That has a lot to do with the charismatic characters. You don't care that these guys are robbing and shooting because you see that they have families and they have families to provide, and that they try to be good people in a sense. Sometimes they're like not, because you can tell they're not good people, but they're so charismatic that you almost forgive them. Like, forget it. Like even how Tony Stark, the Iron Man, is sort of like a jerk and sort of like pokes fun at some of the guys, but you forget because he's so charismatic, he's so charming, he's so funny, and that's how really the characters, having these 3 central characters, are really great pillars for the movie to stand on because they're so strong and so well developed. Then you have the improvised scene that creates that authenticity, and then incredible pace and direction from Scorsese, and you have an incredible movie that does, like I said, those last 20 minutes really influence, because it's been like Wolf of Wall Street, where it's only like the last 10 minutes that show his decline. I think Scorsese's, the 20 minutes really gives that Goodfellas. And you don't think, 10 minutes, but it really feels like his downfall. It's more than 20 minutes, but you see Ray Liotta's character, who we much love into this charismatic guy, sort of like beating his wife, and he's like doing coke, and he's like, his eyes are all messed up, and it's like, oh my god, geez, like, what are you even doing? And then he eventually rats out on his friends. And now it's actually Henry Hill, Ray Liotta's character, is actually out of prison now, and they've been interviewing him, some pretty interesting stuff. But now let's move over to my favorite movie. this is twice in a week, 2 weeks in a row where my best and my favorite had split. Oh no, 3 weeks now. Oh, okay. So that's good. And that's why I want to talk about more movies, because I love all these directors so much. And this is Taxi Driver. And I know I've been saying this a lot, but this is really one of my favorite movies of all time. Really, it's like Inside Llewyn Davis, Fargo, Taxi Driver, Rushmore. Those are really sort of like, oh yeah, I really, really love these movies. And Taxi Driver hit me in a way like Inside Llewyn Davis did. And I really think that comes to the character. Robert De Niro's character playing Travis Bickle is such an interesting character because we follow his insanity. We don't know he's insane at the beginning, although watching back again, you know. So it's great to watch back again and watch multiple times. But we see him as this guy sort of like, oh, this lonely guy, and he's really weird and awkward, but you know, he tries to ask out a girl, and he really wants her, but he just doesn't know how to do it, and takes her to a porn movie instead. And so if he doesn't know how to do it, but you feel bad for him, but then you realize he's more and more sane and sort of crazy and really wants bad to come to humanity. But that's another thing, is that he's just a walking contradiction. I'll go into that a little bit later, but let's go back into the character of Travis Bickle and how lonely he is. That's why I think I liked Inside Llewyn Davis and Taxi Driver so much, and a lot of these movies, sort of these pathetic, almost lonely, sort of like not good characters, because I think it gives me this interesting, unique perspective. Like, I don't think I've met anybody in the world like Travis Bickle. He's so unique. Although if I did know that sort of one guy that sticks by himself and really sort of looked into him, he could have been that guy. You know, there's criminals all the time. And really that's the interesting thing about Travis Bickle in terms of the walking contradiction, is that he says stuff like, you know, I want to keep the scum off the streets, yet he has insomnia apparently and can't go to sleep at night, so he drives the taxi and sort of sees that underbelly of New York, which is one of my favorite parts of the movie, along with the just really hallucinating, dream-like visuals that you see when he is in Taxi Driver versus the very much normal sort of day-to-day routine. It's a great transition, and it's sort of like a real, it really captures 1970s New York, and it captures it really how it is in terms of the sort of the day-to-day routine. But as soon as the night comes out, it's almost like these guys come out, you know, he says like the hookers, the pimps, you know, the gamblers, the drug addicts, all these guys sort of come out from the alleyways of New York, and it creates this great, and Scorsese does this great job, along with the impeccable Paul Schrader script, that was heavily inspired by The Searchers, another great movie. John Ford, we will be covering him, which I actually think is his best movie. It does a great job at sort of keeping that hallucinogenic feel where it's like, oh wow, this is the night juxtaposed with the day is so different, and I love that so much. Of course, like I said, the score isn't great. I think this is personally my favorite De Niro performance. You know, he has that sort of thing with what's his name? Betty, I know is the character, and then at the beginning, where the adult one, where he's working for the political figure, and she tries to pursue that, but after that, and he's trying to almost save her from this political figure that sort of has like her right by his side. And that's another thing I like to point out, is that he looks for girls, or really partners, or anybody else who's already associated to something else. So she's associated to the politician, and then Jodie Foster's character later, he's trying to save her from the pimp. So he's always trying to like bring people into his world, and that just shows his loneliness, along with shots of him in the taxi cab with him through the window to show that there's a separation between the two. But everyone else seems to have associated with something, and he's trying to pull them back and pull them into his world, but he always fails until he has to, at the end, resort to violence, because he has such this warped mindset, which a lot of times is racist. People are definitely saying the movie's racist, because it's not. But the character is racist. And that's what comes back to perspective, is that this movie, throughout the movie, is based through Travis Bickle's perspective. And to see that, and to see this interesting, lonely, weird character that you sympathize for, memorable lines like "You're talking to me," this is a great movie that I love to study and watch and enjoy. And I know a lot of people, they're like, it's almost too heavy for them to watch and watch again. But for me, there's something about it that I gravitate towards. And I think it's just that mix of the score, the incredible performances, the incredible writing, and how every dialogue is purposeful, and how every shot frame, I think, is meant to do something. I think it's just an incredible job by Scorsese. And I think Taxi Driver is his best movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. This is the reason why I did these directors first, because these are some of my favorite directors, of course, some of their favorite movies. Another honorable mention, King of Comedy. I think a super underrated movie of his. Really, really good. I highly recommend King of Comedy. I haven't seen it, but first, Goodfellas, and if you haven't seen that, Goodfellas, and then if you haven't seen that, Taxi Driver. just really great movies, ending just so that almost society, because we know this character, we see him as a killer, but society doesn't necessarily know that, and they're on his side. Because, oh, he saved this girl. Really Taxi Driver was a great movie, and for all those reasons, like I said, his incredible sense of energy and his great storytelling, that's why Martin Scorsese is a master of controlled chaos. Make sure you like the video, comment below, let me know. I love reading your comments. Subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. It would mean a lot to me. It really just hear your comments and hear that there are people are out there. So anyways, that's why it's master of controlled chaos. I'm Connor Old, and until next time, stay tuned.